Hey everyone, welcome to the next edition of The Next Decision. My name's Jarie Bolander, General Manager of Subscriber and Executive Strategist here at Decision Council. Today, I am thrilled to welcome Sam McArtor, co-founder and COO of Rentgrata. Sam, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jarie. Appreciate the intro.
Yeah, of course, man. I'm just always wondering, where do I get a shirt like that?
Bonobos, man, they make all different kinds of shirts and all different kinds of sizes. It's perfect for me.
Yeah,
And
no, I love
don't
that
worry
place.
about it too much.
Yeah, I love that place. It's such a great place. But in all seriousness, we're really excited for you to be on the show. You're working on some really cool stuff over at Rentgrata, and I'm just curious, what was it that made you want to start this company?
It's a good story, the origin story. So there's two other co-founders at Rentgrata, Ben and Zach. And years ago, almost a decade actually, Zach and I both worked at Ernst & Young, big professional services firm. We lived in Chicago and Zach lived in a big high rise. And a couple different times over one summer, he actually ran into acquaintances that had moved into his apartment community. And he ran into them after they had moved in. So we started talking about that, and Zach was really upset that he missed out on the opportunity to provide them with feedback, so that they had a better understanding of what it would be like to live in the community, and really so that Zach could earn that referral, that apartment referral. So Zach kind of approached me with the problem, and we thought it was crazy at the time. We started doing some research, and we couldn't find any way to figure out kind of where your social network actually lived.
Interesting.
And so we got to, jumping in and doing some research, and we kind of quickly realized that there really wasn't a platform available that would allow prospective renters to find out where their social network existed.
The best marketing is word of mouth, referral marketing. You call a buddy and you're like, hey man, what do you think of this place? And sounds like you've just built the technology platform around that. I wonder, how hard was it to do? It seems easy, but as everything, right, it's never as easy as you think.
Yeah, when we came up with the idea, we thought we'd be billionaires in 2 years, but that's not how it has panned out. No, so early on, we were first-time founders. We had really no idea what we were doing, but we were ready to hustle and we wanted to make it work. So when we initially thought of the problem, Zach and I, we looped in Ben because he had some industry experience. He's our third co-founder. And from that conversation, we put our heads together and we were like, we could create an internet listing service similar to a Zillow or an apartments.com that would compete in that space. And man, were we wrong. We completely underestimated the amount of work and money that it would take to drive traffic to the internet listing service. That was the first big mistake that we made. But we pivoted from there and we started leveraging the website traffic of the property itself, like the apartment community. And that's when we really started to take off. It's just a much simpler way of making that really important connection between the two parties, the prospect and the resident.
And the property owners are okay with this? Is there any tension? Because I could see I guess if you run a bad property, yes. If you run a good property, maybe not. But how do you manage that tension?
Yeah, it's interesting. That was a big thing to overcome. Properties and management companies in general, especially prior to Rentgrata, kind of had a bad taste in their mouth around resident feedback. And a lot of that stemmed from reviews. They're super polarizing. People only leave them if they're really happy or really upset. And there's nothing in between. Almost every time I do a sales pitch, the first question I get is, what about negative residents? And we now know and have a bunch of data to back it up that the vast majority of residents are happy and they want to talk about their experience, even if they live at, a decent property. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to give them a voice and an incentive to want to share that voice with potential new neighbors. And that's exactly what we did. I forgot to mention, on Rentgrata, if a resident chats with a prospect and then that prospect moves in, they both earn a reward. And that differs from the traditional referral program in a sense, but it works.
Interesting. Have you thought of applying this to any other type of situation, or this is just unique to renting?
Right now, Rentgrata is laser focused on multifamily,
Mhm.
but we've absolutely talked about how it would be applicable to other industries. Really, anything where there's a customer that has to make a big decision, long lifetime value type of a sale,
Yeah.
then Rentgrata could apply. We've talked about using it for gyms or auto dealerships, or with you in particular.
Yeah,
Uh,
subscriber, right? Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
So for sure. There's just really nothing out there in the market that we're aware of that offers a similar solution for to Rentgrata, regardless of the industry.
Yeah, I can't think of one. It's almost more proactive for if someone wants to find out about something, they can literally ask someone that lives there, ask someone that's experiencing it, which is a very different thing than looking at a review. I mean, it's almost more dynamic. It reminds me of some of those like, it's almost like a Reddit thread with rewards. I don't know if you
Yeah,
think about
it
it
is.
that way, but
It is. One of the problems with asking people to be like an influencer or an ambassador,
yeah,
or one of the problems with like traditional resident referral programs for apartment communities is that, I live in a community. I have like 6 friends in Tampa. Most of them live in a house. The other ones rent apartments and are happy with where they live. Outside of my social network, I don't have anybody to refer.
yeah.
But with Rentgrata, because prospective renters can chat with just anybody who has signed up to participate in the program via the property's website, it's super, super easy for a renter to connect with somebody who has similar likes and interests that they do in a building that they're interested in. And I think that's what we've really capitalized on over the years, is just making that information exchange super efficient.
I'm struggling to figure out another platform kind of like this. Is what's similar? Like what give people a sense of if there's anything that's similar.
I think for us, the most similar interaction that somebody could have would be if you're looking for an apartment community, and you maybe have a certain level of interest in, let's say, Arabelle Riverwalk. You would literally go stand outside of the door of Riverwalk and wait for a resident to walk out and be like, "Hey,
Hey, what do you think? Yeah.
how do you like it here? What do you think?"
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
actually done that in person before,
Uh-huh.
and it's when we were in Chicago getting the company started, and it's crazy how similar my conversation in real life was to conversations that we see on RentGrad all the time.
How many people participate like per site? Like what it's just an interesting idea, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think with any referral or ambassador program, like the issue is the amount of work that has to go into it. Like even when I was in Chicago, I had a bigger friend group. I didn't know who was interested in moving.
That's
I
true.
don't see my
Point.
friends that often.
Yeah.
It was sort of a proactive thing that the ambassador would have to do in order to draw, referrals to their property. But we created a solution that's a little bit more reactive for the ambassador. So they essentially sign up and then they sit back and wait for a prospect, someone who's interested in moving in, to reach out to them. And it makes the whole process a lot better, and a lot more personal and genuine than just reading like a Reddit thread or a review online.
Especially if you could like ask them specific questions, right? Like, oh, hey, I saw this great, Reddit thread or let's get great review, but I don't really care about that. I care about something else. Is there like criteria for how long the answer has to be? I mean, is there any QA on that? Or is it more like someone asks a question and they're like, yeah, it's great. Like, oh, that's not
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, for sure. So we define it as a thoughtful conversation.
Hmm. Okay.
And we have a large AI tech stack that is powering a lot of things at Rentgrata, but it also helps us make sure that the conversations are meaningful and that it's not just a high exchange, in order to be eligible for those rewards. So it's pretty cool, and it really does work. We have a ton of data that backs up the conversion rate for a prospect that has chatted with a resident is like 10 times most other lead sources,
Oh, wow.
like industry wide.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's ambassador programs and referral programs, to your point, kind of a pain in the butt. Like, I'm really not going to like, unless I'm really into that. And I don't know what the take rate is on that. My guess is ambassador programs, I would say 10% of them are actually like doing it would be my guess,
Yeah.
but I don't know that. Don't hold me to that data. But making it easy, frictionless, and useful. And then I could see how the property managers are like, well, don't take our word for it. This person literally put their money down, has been here, is paying you how many hundreds, if not thousands of dollars per month to literally be here. They've got skin in the game. They have literally got stakes, the high stakes. There's got to be a reason they haven't left, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's interesting. Sometimes management companies will ask us, well, isn't this resident like incentivized to only speak positively about their experience? And, you would think maybe, but you also have to realize that with an apartment community, if I'm a resident and I'm just overselling my experience to a prospect, and then that prospect moves in across the hallway from me, that's going to be super awkward, and not a great experience for either party. So the conversations that take place are authentic and genuine. And that is really what prospects of any product or service are looking for. They want genuine, authentic feedback about what it is that they're going to get from their purchase, regardless of what it is.
Yeah, if you totally really hype your company up and then your buddy comes and works at it and it's like, this place sucks. You're like, what? And you have to like see him at the coffee cooler, right? Every day, or like as you're walking to lunch.
I don't know if I'd like to see that buddy anymore.
No. You're like, oh, this place, my boss is a lunatic. How come you didn't tell me? Interesting. So you mentioned you have like a ton of data. Tell me a little bit about that, and then how you use that sort of data to sort of either improve the platform, or to your point about, like the sales process. I think one of the things that I always find interesting is how people use like case studies and referrals and like, things that showcase how great they are. A lot of people they don't do that very often. And two, like they sit on a bunch of data, but they don't use it, which I find shocking at times. So can you walk us through like how you use this sort of data to not only help the experience be better on the platform, but also like, hey man, you should definitely install us because we do XYZ.
Yeah, for sure. Data's huge. And if you think about it, being able to be a fly on the wall as a property manager when a prospect and a resident are having a conversation about you, like you absolutely want to know what's being said. So years and years ago, we actually built our own model that analyzes all of the prospect resident conversation data. And back then, we did it for two reasons. One, to make sure that, both parties are being appropriate on the platform, because we have an obligation to the property managers to make sure that that's, happening. But the other was that we realized we're sitting on a gold mine. All of these comments made by residents about their experience or interests that prospects have about, what it's like to live in the community, that information can be used by the property management company to make better leasing operations and marketing decisions. So we essentially took that large language model when OpenAI came out, we were like, we can make this so much cooler because we used to provide just graphs and visuals and, word clouds. We basically incorporated OpenAI's technology, ChatGPT, to our data set and our learning our model. And we now have what we call ARI, which is essentially ChatGPT designed for multifamily, that has access to this prospect resident conversation data.
And that's per property or per like organization?
Yeah, so it essentially is available however you want to make it available if you have access to it. You can ask questions about an individual property and get super granular, or you can ask questions about your portfolio and see how things like, for example, maintenance at a community are trending over time. So it's a really cool way to see kind of at the end of the day what your renters or your customers care about. And there's a lot of gaps in that. There was a lot of gaps in that space prior to Rentgrata releasing that technology.
Take me through a little bit of that. Like, what are some of those insights that your AI model found, and how can others learn from this? Because we get asked a lot about AI, and I'm like, well, it's kind of case by case, right?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it's really always interesting to first start with what are prospects, people looking for apartments, what are they interested in? And some of the most common questions that we get on RentGrata from a prospect asking a resident are things like, what are the pros and cons of living here? Because again, they don't want to be oversold. They want to know what they're signing up for. Nothing's perfect. The thing that management companies, I think, need to take away from the data that they have access to in our case is that when residents are providing feedback, it is positive, overwhelmingly so, but there's also a little bit of negative sentiment sprinkled in there. And that negative sentiment is what really gives them an opportunity to improve. And take action. So it's cool to be able to see kind of in our platform, if you think about three different buckets of like positive, neutral, and negative sentiment, it's overwhelmingly positive. But the negative stuff and the neutral stuff is really what provides value to the management company into making change that can actually impact revenue at the end of the day and then their bottom line.
Do they see this as a revenue enhancement? Because interesting. So like in the broadband service provider world, there's something called ARPU, average revenue per user. They always want that high. They want churn low. I don't know if those are the same things in the rental space, but my guess is they want to keep long-term residents because that's better for business. Or what does your data say on that? I'd be curious to know.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we have the same exact things in multifamily. We just have different words for them. Churn in our industry is like renewal rates. How often and what percentage of residents will live at a community beyond the first year? And it's much, much cheaper for multifamily apartment managers to essentially try to keep the back door closed, keep the customers that you have, keep the revenue that you have, than trying to fill that vacant unit. And I would imagine broadband's the same way. You significantly cheaper to keep a customer.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It all, I think, comes down to serving the customer because the customer has more options than you think. I think the thing I find fascinating is that these companies don't want to hear the bad news, or they don't know how good it really is until they ask. And you provide that for them. Like, you can prove it. I mean, proof is in the pudding, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, we know that sometimes a good example, if I was a resident at a community and I said, overall, I really recommend it, my favorite thing is this, but I wish the management company picked up the trash more than once a week. For most prospects, they would take that information and say, okay, great, that's fine. I can deal with the trash being picked up once a week. That's not a big deal. But that feedback right there is something that the management company can take action on to make an improvement. Maybe we should schedule twice a week trash pickup. And then for those other prospects, sometimes maybe, 5% of prospects might be like, trash is, really important to me. I need multiple trash pickups every week. And that's fine. You don't want that prospect to move in anyway, because if they did, that prospect would move in. The trash issue would be a surprise to them. They would leave a negative review and then they would move out. And like I said, turn or somebody renting a unit and then moving out is way more expensive than just waiting a couple more days to find the right buyer for the unit. It's kind of a cycle. The way that people share information and the way that people digest it, and then how the management company can utilize it to make changes. It's pretty cool.
And what have you seen in terms of performance for the companies that have adopted this? What are the metrics look like?
At the end of the day, dollars and cents are what really people focus on in any business. And we have done case studies with some of our largest clients to kind of analyze the impact that we have on their essentially cost per acquisition. And we have found that by offering this personalized, authentic experience of connecting with a resident, the management company can actually significantly reduce their cost per acquisition, so much so that like that's on top of what they're spending for our platform and the rewards that are being issued. So in other words, we're a cost savings tool.
Really?
Yeah, it's wild.
Why is that? What is it? Is it just the pre-qualification, or I would not have expected that?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It's a qualifier. It's a way to get I always make the analogy, we're helping management companies kind of squeeze more juice out of the same lemon. So ultimately, at the end of the year, they can sit down and say, okay, our conversion rate to acquire a new customer has gone up by X. Let's reduce marketing spend because we now don't need as many leads. And on the back end of the relationship for the renter, they're more likely, I always say surprises in multifamily are really bad. They're never good surprises. Because of the experience that prospects have, there's less surprises and they're more likely to rent for a longer period of time.
Interesting.
So both of those things kind of impact ultimately costs and cost of acquisition.
Well, it's just this whole idea of being qualified or pre-qualified or high quality prospect coming through the door. In marketing, we always talk about marketing qualified leads, sales qualified leads. A lot of our clients, not just at Subscriber, but at Decision Council in general, the MQL to SQL dilemma is always like the fight that sales has with marketing constantly, because sales always says these are crappy leads, and marketing's like, what do you mean? I nurtured them or whatever. This seems like the ultimate nurture. I mean, this is even better than, and again, I'm broadly saying this, like all those review sites where you do a review, okay, great. In fact, like a lot of them, like G2, like they'll incentivize people. They'll pay them money to review. Now, what's interesting is that there's no social tension between me putting a review on G2 and getting paid for it. But to your point about, I recommend a place, someone moves in and they're my neighbor and they have a bad experience. Now I got to deal with that every day. So there's consequences and repercussions from my review. Not so much when it's just a blanket review. Do you think it's that social feat? There's some magic alchemy here that I think I understand, but I'm just curious if you know what that alchemy is.
Yeah, it's a good question. I know my industry, so that's what I'm going to speak to. I like to think of reviews as today, I like to think of reviews as the property's curb appeal. Like you're able to drive by, see what it looks like, all on the internet, and that's what I think the purpose is that they serve. In multifamily, there's a lot of data around how people feel about reviews. Sometimes people don't trust them, or it is one of the inputs, one of the data sources that they use as they're trying to make a decision. And I think that Rentgrata actually is a really good synergy. It's important to drive reviews for your community because you want to have a good curb appeal. But if you want to take it a step further and provide kind of a more white glove, personalized, authentic experience, that all really comes from connection. You brought up something earlier, like if you were looking for, I think you set an example, if you were looking to get information about something like a job and you asked a friend that worked there, that's what you do. You ask a friend and you're going to believe them.
Right.
And we kind of have incorporated that experience into an efficient technology platform just to make getting that a lot easier.
The stakes are higher, it seems. This is just so fascinating to me because this is like the holy grail, right? There is not a B2B SaaS company that we work with at Decision Council that would not love some sales motion, some marketing campaign that does this pre-qualification, so that when sales gets the lead, like they're just ready to go. They're like, yeah, we talked to everyone and we know what's going on. So I think this is the next level, like especially in the AI age, right? People want authentic connection and they want to not be tricked. And
For sure.
It seems like there's incentives on both sides to not trick people, quote unquote.
Totally agree. Yeah, 100%. And it's interesting, if you search for a property with AI today, like ChatGPT, for example, it can provide you with great recommendations. But if you ask it for information from the reviews, it's taking what in multifamily are sometimes negative reviews, and that's the summary that it provides. Those reviews are not representative of how 90% of the people that live at that community feel. It's just that 10% of that community are vocal.
Yeah.
And the rest are not. They just haven't felt the need to.
Yeah.
I can tell you, I've written a handful of reviews throughout my entire life. It's always because I'm really happy. I'm not going to bash somebody type of guy, but
Right.
I always leave positive reviews. But I think that's pretty rare for most people to do, even if they've had a great experience.
Yeah, me too. I don't like leaving negative reviews. I'm more of a positive guy like you. So, well, what's the next decision you have to make? What are some of the things you're thinking of?
I knew this was going to be your last question.
It's in the name of the show.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I struggle with this on a daily basis. But honestly, one of the things that like we're focused on is around how we can better incorporate our AI technology into the industry. How can we better provide insights? What other data sources should we try to incorporate? And really, what more can we do to help the industry make better decisions and make things more efficient? So I've been thinking a lot about that lately, and I'm honestly just really excited about the future of what we're working on here. And I'm looking forward to closing out the year strong and starting the next one and see what we can do.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Sam, appreciate you being on the show. It was wonderful chatting with you. Good luck with everything.
Jarie, thanks so much for having me, man. It's been a great time. Appreciate it. And best of luck to you and all your future endeavors as well.
So thanks everyone for joining us on the Next Decision podcast, and we will see you next time.